What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Goose Games. And the goose is loose, baby. And we are back here today with my first channel Q&A. If you follow me on social media, you know I've been sharing over the past couple of weeks that I was planning to do my first Q&A video. So I was waiting to get a certain amount of questions so I could field a whole video, essentially. And I believe we have reached that point, so here we are. What I'm looking for in these Q&As is a way to A, get my community more involved, and B, let you guys know more about me. I know I have some friends watching, but I'm assuming a lot of the community that's eventually going to get built won't know me. So I want to let you guys into the way I think. The questions covered here today, it covers a spectrum. There's sports, there's video games, there's comic book, there's wrestling. It's a well-rounded Q&A, and I'm really excited to jump in. So let's get started. My first question is from... Okay, now here's another thing. Tell me down below if I should say your guys' names on here, because I'm not sure. I'm not going to for this episode, because like usually when I see other YouTubers do it, they use usernames and stuff. I just know my friends' names, I don't know. So for today, I am not going to mention names, but maybe going forward, it's something I have to consider. The first question: what has been your favorite role to play? Because I am an actor too, if you guys don't know. So that's a great question. My friend asked me that and said that I cannot say the Cowardly Lion. Fair. I did love playing the Cowardly Lion, though. Also, I added some new decor. We got Iron Man, and we got Spider-Man chilling with the Guardians, so adding a little bit more to the space. But, my favorite role to play, when I think of my favorite role to play, I think of the one that was most fun in the moment. At first, I was going to mention Stelios from the Courtyard of Miracles, which was an original. It's a Greek play that my college translated, and I got to play the lead in that. And that was my first dramatic lead, and that meant a lot to me. But I wouldn't say it was fun. It was very rewarding for the emotional places I was able to go, and to find out I could reach those emotional places. But it was kind of hard for me to get out of it. Um, Basically, some context. The final time you see my character, I run off stage and commit suicide. Um, that was really hard to get to emotionally, because obviously the character builds to a massive explosion, and then that occurs. And it was kind of scary getting there. I know that's an actor's job, but I don't know if that's what I want out of acting. So, my favorite role was when I played Bird Boot in The Real Inspector Hound. The Real Inspector Hound is a masterpiece of a play if you haven't seen it. It's a spoof on the murder mystery genre, on Sherlock Holmes, on Murder, She Wrote, on the entire genre of plays, movies, everything. And it's a farce. It's by Tom Stoppard. Um, there are no real leads in the show. It's an ensemble piece. But when I played Bird Boot, when the amount of lines Bird Boot and Moon the critics have, they kind of are the leads. And my co-lead was one of my best friends. And so we got to play these co-leading roles that only really ever interacted with each other. And it was just us being pompous, just assholes. I was like this slovenly British guy who was using his power as a theater critic to manipulate women, which is not fun. It's iffy subject matter, but it's in a farce, and this is written a long time ago. But that role was just so me, not in the way that he manipulated women, but in the way that he was very physical and goofy and loud and bombastic, and I really had fun leaning into that side of the character. And that entire show was a group of me and my best friends doing work together. So, Bird Boot's my number one. Now, the next question was, I had a couple of people ask me about video games. So what I will say, I have a top 10 video game list I am working on and I'm going to make a video on. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give you some honorable mentions from my top 10 list. So I won't reveal any of my top 10 lists today, but I'll reveal to you the first 3 or 4 names not in my top 10. And that would be the game we just played through on the channel, Batman Arkham Asylum. I think it's an incredible game. It just misses out of my top 10, frankly, because there's another game in the series that just did everything it did better. Far Cry 3 is in there. Far Cry 3 was my first exposure to the Far Cry series, and I'm a massive fan. If you're a fan of really open world gaming, I think Far Cry is great. Far Cry, it kind of has an open world GTA Spider-Man vibe, but Far Cry 3, you're on this like tropical island, and the villain, his name I want to say was Voss or Foss. He was played by a real actor, and they did real like cutscenes. The cutscenes were sometimes not video game cutscenes; they were real people in cutscenes. And the performance by that villain alone in Far Cry 3, I recommend you play it. And it's not going to be my top 10, but if I did a top 10 nostalgia video games, Mario 64. I put so many hours into Mario 64 on the N64 as a child, jumping through paintings. I had a blast with that game growing up. I remember playing it with my mom and my dad and my sister, and it was just a great game. It ages well. You can still play it today if you can get your hands on it. So yeah, those are 3 video games that are the first games left off my top 10 list, which you should be getting maybe Christmas Day. I don't know. Next question. If you could perform with any actor, living or deceased, who would it be and why? This is an excellent question. And I'm getting to the sports and comic book stuff after this. I've kind of started with acting question heavy. But for me, I'm doing a top 3. And I'm going with the obvious ones for myself. Just in terms of who I'd want to feel their energy on stage. John Belushi. I think John Belushi is, for being known as one of the greatest comedic actors ever, he was so subtle in what he did. He didn't have to scream or explode. When he did, it was incredible. But all he had to do was work his eyebrows on you. Go look up John Belushi SNL audition. He literally does like an eyebrow exercise. That level of control, I think I could learn a lot from. Number 2 would be Chris Farley. Chris Farley, I've gotten that comparison as a performer before, and I mean, it's an easy one to make. I'm a big guy. I'm very physical on stage. I say physical combat and stage combat and physical comedy are my strength as an actor. I'm not afraid to throw myself through a table like Farley would or roll all around the stage. But then the heart of Chris Farley is what shined through the most. He was so he connected with an audience immediately. You always wanted his character to win, whether it was Tommy Boy, whether it was one of his SNL characters, Black Sheep, which wasn't a great movie, but you could see his heart. I think we really would have seen what Chris Farley could have been with Shrek, which is like a meme now, but I wish Farley could have gotten to do Shrek before he passed. I love Mike Myers, but Chris Farley's better. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care. There's this scene available online, if you look it up, where he voiced the scene around the fire with Donkey, which is very emotional. And that's the Chris Farley I remember. And that's the Chris Farley I want to act with. The serious one who feels a lot. Because I think I have a similar niche. And my number one performer I'd want to perform with, I mean, it broke my heart when he passed. It genuinely affected me. He passed away on the day of the anniversary of my mother's passing, which made it even worse. Robin Williams. Robin Williams. I really can't. I think I'm going to do a full video on acting at some point, like my favorite actors. But just to get started now, he's my favorite actor ever. I really don't have to describe it because if you are around my age or even younger or even older, you knew Robin Williams. Any movie he came out with, you wanted to see because of the heart and love and emotion he put into everything he did. Um, oh man, that's a hard one. Robin Williams is an icon, whether comedic, like the movie Jack, which I loved as a kid, or his roles in Night at the Museum as Teddy Roosevelt, or his serious stuff like Good Will Hunting, which just rips my heart out, like Dead Poets Society. I watch his monologue from Good Will Hunting once a month, just to keep me on my toes as an actor. But that was an amazing question. Thank you. Now, getting into my comic book question. A good friend of mine wants me to recast an existing role in the MCU. Say why I would recast them and who I would recast them with. Now, this is a hard one because they said existing role in the MCU, so I'm taking it as living characters right now. This one I had to put a lot of thought into. Right off the bat, I'm going to mention the fact that John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic would be a miscast, and I would put that here. That would be a big mistake for Marvel. Don't cast John Krasinski. He's not a bad actor, but he's not Mr. Fantastic in my opinion. Mr. Fantastic to me is a chance to cast an actor of a different type. Reed Richards doesn't have to be the 6'5", physically imposing character like Krasinski is. Cast somebody a little different type-wise, like you did Ruffalo with the Hulk. Get somebody of a new type in there. I've said it before, I don't think a lot of people will like it because both of them are TV guys. Andrew Lincoln, who played Rick in The Walking Dead. Glenn Howerton, who played Dennis in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I would love to see either of them. But the one I ended up going with, there's a lot of villains you could recast. Malekith was kind of bad. I almost considered Killmonger just because he died in one movie. And I wish Michael B. Jordan could have a longer impact than that. Who else did I have written down? Those are the only ones I really want to mention. But the character I am recasting is War Machine, Don Cheadle. I've never liked Don Cheadle as War Machine. I'm sorry, he just doesn't. He doesn't do it for me. He seems like the oldest of the group. He's a little too mature. I think of Don Cheadle like classical. I don't know. I see him in art pictures. Like, I don't know. I just don't see him at this level, and it never worked for me. Especially not because I loved Terrence Howard as Rhodey and as Tony's best friend. Their chemistry in Iron Man 1 was never reached with Downey and Cheadle, in my opinion. They never felt as bro-y as Rhodey and Iron Man felt in 1. Afterwards, they felt like associates. But in number 1, Terrence Howard and Tony just felt like bros. Like, it had that feel to it. That scene on the plane when Terrence Howard goes from sober to hammered and he's like leaning over talking like, when I put this suit on every day. It was hysterical. And Don Cheadle just never did it for me. So I have a few options. The first and best option, never lose Terrence Howard. Bring him back. I think Terrence Howard would have been perfect for that. And I really enjoy Terrence Howard as an actor. So more Terrence Howard is not a bad thing in my book. Now what we have to think about is War Machine has a show coming out that he's a lead in. He's a military man, so he needs a certain level of He can put on the serious face, but I want a little cockiness to him. So after that, I mentioned Jamie Foxx. We know him and Robert Downey Jr. work well together because of the movie Due Date, where they played best friends. That might be too low of a role for an actor of his caliber, especially now considering he's coming back as Electro. But I think Jamie Foxx's type could fit that role. Marlon Wayans, I would like to see. I think he would really do the best friend thing with Tony really well, and I feel like he drops in when it's time to get serious. I buy him. And I know it's a comedy, but like White Chicks, the stuff with him and his girlfriend or fiance or whatever she was, when he would drop in and get serious, I bought it. So I think Marlon Wayans could do it. Mekhi Phifer, I don't really know what he's doing nowadays, but he has the same kind of energy I'm looking for. Morris Chestnut, another one. What's his name? Jai Michael White, is that his name? I didn't write one name down. I think it's Jai Michael White. But those are my best options because I'm sorry, but I just don't think Don Cheadle ever worked. I'm sorry if you were hoping I'd pick an A-list Avenger, but they're all kind of perfect. The only one I'd say maybe recast. Fuck. I'm looking at my Guardians poster over my shoulder in my screen over here. I wouldn't recast anybody in that. Tom Holland's perfect. I mean, maybe you could say Scarlet Witch was a little iffy at times. Not Scarlet Witch, Jesus. Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. Maybe you could have picked a different actress there, but I don't know. I think Scarlett Johansson was great, but I know there have been people before to say she's a little bland. But I would go Don Cheadle, get him out of there. I don't really enjoy him in his role. All right, time for some sports questions here. One of my followers who comments on a lot of my things, I appreciate you, my friend. You'll know who you are when I say your question. He wants to know, for the New York Giants, what I would be looking for to replace Daniel Jones in this offseason. That's his first question, so let's start there. There is no replacing Daniel Jones this offseason. I hate to say it, because he had 3 games of no turnovers, but, like, I don't know. That shouldn't be such a thing. We celebrated that so significantly. That should be regular. He should be able to go on 3-game streaks without a fucking turnover. Look, the problem with Daniel Jones as well, he's going to get another year because, 1, they lost Saquon week 1 or 2. He's going to get another chance because this team was built around Saquon. This team is not built for Daniel Jones to throw for 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. It's designed for him to throw 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns, and Saquon to be a 2,000-yard guy. I still am on the fence about Jones, but I'm on the side of the fence where I think he's a fucking bum. I'm sorry, but if Colt McCoy can keep you in games, what is Daniel Jones really providing? Like, Colt McCoy is keeping this offense moving enough that we're competitive. The only thing that makes me want to give Jones more time is his damn athleticism. I had no idea he was this much of an athlete at the quarterback position. But he's going to get another chance. I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm sorry, I just got a message. So, I don't know the free agents at quarterback. Cam Newton will be available. I wouldn't take Cam over Jones. I don't think there's going to be a big free agent market for quarterbacks this year. Here's the thing. If Dak Prescott becomes available on the open market, I would be the first in line as the New York Giants to sign Dak Prescott to a 7-year, $30 million or $35 million a year deal. Sign me up. I think Dak's a top 10 quarterback. I think he could take this team to a Super Bowl. And if Dallas is stupid enough to let him go, I'd be happy to jump on it. But outside of Dak, I'm staying with Daniel. I don't know if that's what I would do. Well, first off, no matter what, bring in competition. You have to bring in competition. Daniel Jones walked into the starting job year 2, got no competition. I'm changing that. I'm bringing in somebody to push him, whether it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, Marcus Mariota. There's always these guys, Jameis Winston, who are at the backup starter tier who could flip-flop. And I think you need to bring one of those guys in to put some pressure on Daniel Jones. No offense to Colt McCoy, but he's not that guy. I'm sorry, but he's just not. Tyrod Taylor could even be an option to push him. I don't know if Giants fans are going to want to hear this, but I would, if you could get him for nothing, I'd take a shot on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, to me, is still a top 5 to 10 most talented quarterback in the league. I think he's partly responsible for what's happened in Philly because he let it get in his head, but I also blame the fan base of Philadelphia for siding with an idiot, overrated scrub like Nick Foles over him. If you really think Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, you're an idiot, and I don't need to hear your opinions on football. So I think Carson ends up, and I think he ends up in Indy and is an MVP candidate again. But if he ended up on the free agent market, shit, talk to him at least. So yeah, I also don't think you can spend a first round or a second round pick on a quarterback this year if you're the Giants. There are too many other holes. You can't dip in the well of quarterback again, especially if you're not getting Lawrence or Fields. It's just not worth it. So I think we're going into next year with Daniel Jones and a veteran to back him up. All right, then the second part of that question from my friend is my favorite quarterback of all time. If I had the time, I'd walk into my closet and show you my Eli Manning jersey. Eli Manning is my favorite quarterback of all time. He's not my best quarterback of all time. He's my favorite. The best quarterback of all time, in my opinion, is Aaron Rodgers. Nobody has ever made... He makes throws I haven't seen anybody else make. He hits windows I haven't seen anybody else make. He's an improviser outside of the pocket. He's everything we thought Andrew Luck could be. He's efficient as all hell. He's thrown, 4 interceptions this year? Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback to ever do it. I don't care if Brady has 6 rings. I'll take Rodgers over him. Brady is clutch as hell, though, so I think Brady is up there, but he's not my favorite. But I'll give you some of my favorites outside of the Giants. I've always enjoyed watching Rodgers. I used to love watching Brett Favre. I really liked Tony Romo, which destroyed me as a Giants fan, but I love the way Tony Romo played the quarterback position, man. He was really good when he was healthy. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to quickly... I think he is the most naturally gifted quarterback to ever play football, and I think within the next few years we'll already be acknowledging him as the future GOAT. But yeah, that's my rundown of the QB position. My favorite is Eli. My best is Rodgers and some other guys I like. Romo, Brett Favre. Who else? Let me give you some weird ones. Shit, I don't know. Dante Culpepper. Used to love me some Dante Culpepper. I'll end with that one. All right, then my final 2 questions of the day from a wrestling friend of mine, a friend of mine who has a wrestling question. First off, who is my favorite women's wrestler and why is it Ivory? Good shout. Good shout out there. Ivory was the shit. Her run with Right to Censor was absolutely incredible. Ivory was one of those workers back in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era who they never looked at her the same way they looked at Lita or Trish, but she was maybe the most reliable woman they had on the roster at that time. Another favorite of mine back then would be Molly Holly. Also, the backstage reports are just that Molly Holly is an absolute saint. So when I think of Ivory and I think of the reliable hands of that era, I also think of Molly. But my favorite women's wrestler is Sasha Banks. Plain and simple. When I did my top 10 wrestlers video, she was the highest ranked female on my list. Sasha Banks is the total package in my opinion. She is the best in the ring in terms of selling. Whenever you need somebody to look strong, throw Sasha in there because Sasha will make it look like the other person is killing her. Sasha sells so hard sometimes. I think she's fucking dying. Um, her character work is the best in the business. I always kind of compare her to the four horsewomen: Sasha, Becky, Charlotte, and Bailey. And I think she's the best character in that group. I think she's the best worker in that group. I know Charlotte is a certain level of athleticism, but when I think of mannerism, psychology, and overall ring presentation of work, I just put Sasha ahead. Um, not for nothing, she's gorgeous. Sasha is the total package. I remember WrestleMania 31, I think it was, the one in Dallas with the big pause button for the symbol. It was Sasha versus Charlotte versus Becky for the women's title on WrestleMania. They had Sasha come out with Snoop Dogg playing her in. I was like, the entrance, I was like, oh, that's a star. This is a star making night for Sasha Banks. And then they had Charlotte go over because of course they did. But Sasha Banks is my favorite female wrestler of all time. I love her submission. I love the Eddie Guerrero shout out she does in her work. Sasha is number one for me. Number two, Asuka. I love Asuka. I think she's the best character in WWE as far as a woman goes. She's so funny, but when she gets serious, she's terrifying. She's a legit badass in the ring. Yeah, but those are my two favorite female wrestlers. And then they also asked who should win the Rumble and who will win the Royal Rumble this year, both men's and women's. For who should win the men's Royal Rumble this year, there's three. My number one who should win the Royal Rumble is Kevin Owens. He is coming off the best year of his career, which started with a massive WrestleMania moment against Seth Rollins when he jumped off the sign at Mania. Everything he's done this year has just been excellent. Leading into the Roman Reigns stuff he's working on now. Oh my God. He just had that incredible TLC match, which basically felt like a handicap match against Jay and Roman. I think the next step in his progression is to win the Royal Rumble. Because I hate to tell everybody, The Rock is not facing Roman this year. If you think Dwayne The Rock Johnson is going to perform in an empty stadium for WrestleMania, well, then I don't know. I got some stocks to interest you in because it ain't happening. I think, one, you could run this match back at WrestleMania, Roman and Kevin. I think you could throw Jay in there to make it a triple threat at that point, depending on how long the family is going to go on as a stable. Jay versus Roman versus Kevin. And then I think if you want to make it real good, Jay versus Roman versus Kevin versus Daniel Bryan, Fatal 4-Way WrestleMania. I wouldn't mind if you had Daniel and Kevin do the final two winners thing. I would almost do a new finish where by the time the Rumble comes, Roman is just despicable beyond the means he's even gone now. So Kevin and Daniel both want Roman desperately. And they both say, we are going to win the Royal Rumble to unseat you at WrestleMania because you have destroyed us week after week, having your cousin beat us up. I think Jimmy could return soon, further making the numbers game in their advantage. Then you have it come down to the final two. It's Kevin Owens and it's Daniel Bryan. Have them both go over the top rope together so their feet touch at the same time. Boom, triple threat. Then Roman puts Jay in the match so he has equal odds. Fatal 4-Way. Halfway through the match, maybe Jay turns face and pins Roman or tries to pin Roman. I think that makes a really exciting title picture for WrestleMania. Who will win? Edge. Either Edge. I want to say Keith Lee because the reports are that Vince... There's a lot of conflicting reports. So there are reports that Vince hates him, because he's too big. But then there was the backstage stuff that came out on WWE.com where Vince was hyping up Keith Lee. Keith Lee feels like the right guy. I hate to say it, but I know it's the truth. I don't trust Vince McMahon to book a black wrestler in a main event way legitimately. I don't think he'll do it. He's racist. If you didn't know, Vince McMahon's a racist piece of shit. He's had one black world champion the entire time. His one black WWE champion, the number one title. He's had one, Kofi Kingston, and that was 2 years ago. So Keith Lee and Big E both could win the Rumble and should win the Rumble, but I don't trust Vince McMahon. I don't. I would say Kevin Owens should. Who will? I'm going to say Edge will. And the title ends up back with Orton by Mania. Or you do Orton, Edge, and Drew in a triple threat. That's a way to spice up Edge and Orton one more time and keep Drew in the title picture. For the women's the women's Royal Rumbles, I would have Bianca win. Bianca, I think, could main event WrestleMania. I think Sasha versus Bianca is a main event of WrestleMania. It's that simple. It's Bianca or it's Rhea, in my opinion. Make a star. I don't want to see Charlotte win it again. The only person that's a big name I could see win it would be Bayley. So then we're doing Bayley Sasha one more time at Mania, which I think is what they will do. I think they will have Bayley win the Rumble. I would have Bianca win the Rumble, the Women's Rumble, that is. All right, guys. So we're a half hour in. That's my first Q&A. Thank you so much to my friends that submitted questions. Please share this on social media. Comment down below any Q&As for next time. I'm going to start doing it where the Q&As will be in the video that was last in the series. So I'll make that clear in my next post about my Q&As as well. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. The Goose is out. Hi!